Okay, so welcome everyone. Good to have you today. Also welcome everyone listening to this online. Now, there is some things when it comes to practice that are often misunderstood, and so today I'm going to attempt to clarify some of those points a little bit. So one of these major kind of misunderstandings is that we don't have to do anything to practice. Partially that is correct. So in a way you can say when you're coming into practice, you're creating the right causes for the practice of the meditation to happen by itself. But however, still that implies that you have to create the right causes for these things to happen. Nowadays there is a rise of spiritual teachings that sound very, very simple, including this one here. It's also sounding very simple, and it actually is very simple. But very often the aspect of actual practice is neglected. And so people end up confused. They feel like it's enough to just hang out, basically. But it's not enough to just hang out. It's not enough to just relax into non-doing, because most of us have absolutely no clue what that means. In order to really understand non-doing, so in other words, to really understand truly what being means, we have to have a somewhat refined mind, a mind which is able to kind of pull itself out of the stream of constant thinking, and that doesn't just arise by itself without any effort. So in the beginning there is a great deal of effort that has to be made, and we call that a spiritual discipline or a spiritual practice, and it plays a very important role. Even though then when we actually do the practice, I often, when I talk about doing the practice, when I talk about just sitting down and actually engaging in meditation practice, then I often go like, oh, just relax, just drop it, don't think about it, let it go, leave it alone, let it be, and so forth. We still have to bring up some discipline to actually sit down and practice, and we still have to bring up some discipline to actually do the work of letting go. Because habitually and continuously we are very much used to holding on and to clinging and to craving. So we're holding on to, for example, very strongly, and this is very profound, this goes very deep, to this image of a self, a feeling that we are an independently existing, separate entity, personality that exists separately, independently from everything else. And furthermore, that this kind of entity is in control of everything else. And very often it appears like this. It appears, I am here and the universe is around me. We don't feel as a part of the universe, or we don't feel as if we were the universe. We feel very much separate, as a separate kind of entity that engages some sort of, that is somehow trapped in this universe and needs to live a life. I need to do my life, I need to do it well. That is deeply ingrained. That doesn't just vanish if you imagine that you are just consciousness, that you're enough. I'm just awareness. Everything is nice. I've considered that, and I've just picked up this word yesterday. This is a word in Western psychology, actually, spiritual bypassing. We believe that we understand something very easily. And then we go around and we kind of trumpet it around, like everything is consciousness, everything is totally liberated already, and we are actually totally free from all these kind of things. These are noble ideas, these are nice high-minded talk that lacks fundamental practice, or fundamentally practice is really, really important, a spiritual discipline. Even though what people often say, like, yes, essentially, you could say my center is consciousness, or I am the knower, or something like that. That is pretty correct. It points in a very good direction, at least. But just assuming that, or believing in that, or making it your kind of your philosophy doesn't pull you out of suffering. And so life usually has its ways to show you, look, this is just an ideal that you have. It's like a nice idea, but it's not an actual fact. So look, here you are suffering, and here you are still suffering. And there too. And life kind of tickles you like this until you until you get the point that every little kind of suffering in life is a hint. It is almost like life is, in a very kind way, teaching us where we go into resistance. And then you can say things like, there is no such thing as a self. But as soon as you go into resistance, there is a sense of self that resists, for example, the pain, or that still feels very much attacked by the pain, or attacked by the sadness, or attacked by certain things. That is that very sense of self that we can deny. We can say, well, there is no really, there is not a real solid self, or everything is empty, or we are all consciousness, or something like this. And then you go into resistance to like little tiny things, like your spouse treating you in a way that you don't like to be treated, for example, and then you go into massive resistance. You have a mosquito in your room, there it is, and you go into massive resistance to this mosquito. Or like you see a cockroach and you don't like cockroaches, you go into massive resistance. There is this great sense of self arising again, no matter your philosophy or the high-minded ideals that we often have. So for people who do assume, they say, hey, just stop all spiritual acrobatics, stop spiritual gymnastics, just realize you are the self. It sounds so nice, so simple, so easy, and it is. That's the funny thing, this is the trick. It is so simple. But we are way too complicated to actually appreciate the simplicity of that statement. So in a way, practice means that we are working on becoming uncomplicated, at least to such a degree that we can witness the simplicity of our existence. And so for that we do need practice. So the Buddha has introduced 3 kind of things that should be practiced. The so-called 3 trainings, right? You have Sila, which means a moral conduct. It means the way we behave, the way we design our life, the way we act, the way we speak, the way we think. It determines whether we are living a happy life or an unhappy life, or kind of something in between. Is determined by how we think, how we govern our mind, the conditioned mind. For example, if you're predominantly more grateful, then you're experiencing more joy and more happiness, more appreciation. If you're predominantly more fault-finding, then also you will experience more unease, more trouble in life. That is something that is clear to all of us. If we are more kind, and we are also experiencing nicer things. If we are less kind, experiencing less nice things with other people in relationships. We're more compassionate and so forth, all these kind of things. If you stop stealing from other people, you don't feel guilty, you don't feel regret or shameful about yourself. You don't have to hide yourself. That is what shame is, right? We have to hide ourselves. When we steal from other people, we cannot do this openly. So there is some aspect of our life that doesn't match out with the outer image that we portray. That discrepancy then leads to suffering. It is an inner sense of suffering. You can't really show who you are and what you really do. You need to keep it hidden. Like that. So it would be wise then to give up stealing so we're not suffering the consequences of stealing or lying or whatever it is that we're engaged in, these kind of things. That's ethics, that's morality, very simple. Restraining the self. The second point of the training is then to train to stabilize your mind. Very obvious to all meditators, I think, it is the so-called monkey mind. That we know that our mind is constantly active and it's constantly buzzing around and thinking a lot. Now, a mind that thinks a lot is very far from understanding that we are all consciousness or all is one or all these kind of things. If we're still very far from really understanding it. We might say honey is sweet, but we have never tasted it. So we don't know the sweetness of honey, the actual honey kind sweetness, we don't know it. But we can still talk about it, we can still say honey is sweet, because some masters who have tasted honey before, they said honey is sweet. So we can copy them, and we can like it, what they say, we can like it and appreciate it, and it's nice. It is indeed very nice, it is very uplifting. It is way better than kind of just gossip or something like this. So enjoying these kind of talks, this is something that brings the mind into a higher kind of thinking, at least. It's a form of morality again, it is a form of restraint. We are restraining the self, we are giving it some useful ideas to reflect upon. But also often then the self wants to own these ideas and say, well, I got that one, I understand. Can you explain it again? And you explain it again and again, and suddenly you go, yes, now I got what you said. Everything is empty. I got it. And then we go outside and someone cuts you off on the road and there is the emptiness, it's gone again. It's all very full again, full of self again. The mind not empty anymore. So that's why I tell it needs a lot of practice, very consistent work on the mind, to keep it still, keep it quiet, to bring it out of thought, to bring it into this moment, into presence. Basically, it's kind of like you're speeding up the process of waking up with that. You can significantly speed up this process of waking up. But what it takes is a very regular practice, formal practice. And I mentioned that several times over the past few weeks. It's really important to do formal practice. Many people like to excuse themselves and say, well, it's enough for me to just be awake in my daily life, you know. Or if I have some of the closer students, I would ask them, and how was your day? And they say, well, today I didn't do much, but I was mindful. I had a mindful talk with my mom or something like that. Or I had a mindful day in the city. That doesn't cut the cake. This is by far not enough. It's great, it's very good, but if you really want to practice and you really want the fruits of good meditation practice to actually work out, then we have to do this not only consistently, constantly during the day, but also in formal practices. Formal practice is something that significantly deepens your experience. And you can use your aversion to formal practice. This is, by the way, not you that has aversion to it, it's ego that has aversion towards formal practice. You might guess why. Why would ego not like sitting practice? Well, because it means that it's out of business for a little while, and ego doesn't like that. Ego doesn't like to be that someone comes and takes its toys away. All the distractions, all that kind of stuff, and all the nice ideas. They have to go away in sitting practice. But this is so important and vital. If you really want to get something out of meditation, you kind of have to do your work. You have to sit down every day. And start with short amounts. Because in the beginning of our practice, it's still just a lot of effort that is required. And then slowly ปานบอกฉันเห็นข้างนอกกับคริสอยู่ข้างนอกบอกเขาว่าเข้ามาได้เลย So we are making some effort in the beginning to push ourselves up to a level where we start to feel the first inklings of joy blossoming out of our meditation practice. At these first moments, no problem, these first moments when the practice actually starts to become really pleasant. When the term for that is piti, when this is often translated as rapture or joy, when these kind of first times, when you have received enough energy out of stillness, out of your practice, that the first kind of sprouts are coming up, and you notice, wow, this really feels good. But in order to get to that point, a lot of sowing is required. You need to sow the seeds. You need to really do the work. You need to, take care of the field. You need to water it properly every day. And yeah, sure, this is work, it is effort. And then slowly, the first kind of little sprouts are coming out. And then you just keep going consistently, and that joy, that happiness grows with each practice. It grows more and more. The more you can really remain present and focused, and you keep your mind still, the more happiness there is. This is why sometimes I'm heavily encouraging practice. And then sometimes I'm heavily encouraging to relax. Both of these advices, they come together. Practice means you want to relax. But in order to relax, you need to sit down and do what it takes for you to relax. And since we're very tense, we're coming with a whole lot of tension to the practice. To become untense, to relax, appears as an effort. Because we're immediately tensing up again. So we need to let go again. Then we tense again. We need to let go again. Again. So forth. It goes back and forth. You know from Tai Chi. The same thing. Relaxing the body. The tension comes up again. So fast. And in the mind, that tension is reflected by thinking. Just that's a mental tension. It is thinking, just the activity of thought. As long as your mind is thinking, it is tense. It doesn't matter what you're thinking about, it's tense. And as soon as thinking stops for long enough, then something else can take over. Another type of energy can take over. More spaciousness can take over. So in the beginning, for most beginning meditators, you want to listen to teachings that help you to feel energized to do the practice, to do the effort, so you get to a point where your being becomes more settled and spacious and more comfortable. And the more you join these kind of classes, the more it will become some sort of priority in your life. It will become something that you really kind of want to taste at some point. And you will find yourself maybe coming class after class after class, but you're still not tasting it. And that's very good. It means after some point, you kind of really have enough, and then you start to really practice. I'm coming from many, many years, but I'm still a bundle of tension. It's time to really do the work now. It's time to really practice. It worked like this for me also, listening to many teachings, visiting teachers and so forth, and like always feeling like, man, what they talk about, I want to feel it. I want to realize it. I want to become that. I just don't want to kind of hear about it all the time and feel like, man, you get read down this really beautiful menu, you're hungry, and you hear like there's this dish, and then there is that dish, and there's deep fried this, and a stir fried that, and steamed, and you're like, oh my God, my mouth is watering. Now you really want to practice because you're hungry. And we're hungry because we have suffered enough. It's kind of enough. It's like, man, just turning around and around and around and around, day in, day out, the same, reliving our past attitudes, reliving our past habits again and again unconsciously. It's enough now. I want to discover that inner peace that so many people are talking about. I want to taste it. And then you start to make effort. And then you experience the results. And then with more results showing up, you become more and more effortless. Like with any good training, right? If you do something 1,000 times, 10,000 times, you become effortless at this. It becomes a reflex. Same with meditation. Then your mindfulness becomes a reflex. It just kicks in. More and more. And so you can really start to relax more and more and enjoy your life. And that's why I give these talks. Number one, to remind myself to enjoy my life. And number two, to help you guys with the same kind of task. So you can also develop this kind of practice to enjoy your life more. That doesn't mean to get stuck in life. Now that's the second kind of misunderstanding that many people have. So you tell them we let go of suffering and stress. That's what we do with meditation. And they say, great, I like that. Then I say we let go of the mind. We let go of everything completely. Oh, what about happiness? What about love? What about good things? Should I let them go too? So here's the deal. This is a big misunderstanding. Letting go, we often misunderstand as getting rid of. So when we hear letting go, we hear actually, our mind hears getting rid of. Somehow pushing it out of your life. I've let go of that. Meaning, I don't experience it anymore. I've gotten rid of this. But that's not what letting go is. It's more a form of just leave it. Like right now, for example, you've all let go of the sound of the fountain. It's there, but you don't experience it as any kind of thing. You probably haven't even heard it until I mention it. But now, suddenly, now it's there. I mentioned it this morning also with birds, you remember. The same thing, you just leave it. It's there, but it's of no concern. You're not suffering it. But it can still be there. That is letting go. Now, letting go of suffering, we understand, as I said before, getting rid of suffering sounds great. But then when we say letting go of happiness, we feel like getting rid of happiness? No. I don't want to do that. But I'm not saying get rid of anything. I say let go, leave it. Just leave it be. It will come and it will go, as it always came and went. Haven't you noticed already that sometimes happiness comes to you and sometimes suffering comes to you? That will continue. In the form of circumstances, I mean. Like nice circumstances will sometimes come to you, and negative circumstances will sometimes come to you. And in the beginning also still, nice emotions will come to you, and then negative emotions also will come to you. The fact is, you cannot pull them apart. The good and the bad are one thing. like birth and death. You cannot pull them apart. You cannot say, I'm opting in for birth, but death, I don't want it. You cannot. If you opt in for birth, you also include death. It's just not mentioned on the packaging. Or like really, really small print, just on the back of the pack somewhere. Death included. And then when it comes, it's almost like a surprise, like many of the small prints of your insurance kind of forms, right? That you've signed it and then you're sick, you go to the hospital, insurance says, sorry, we don't cover that. Didn't you read the small print? Oh, of course I did. Everyone reads the small print, right? That's the problem. And we don't like to read the small print, meaning we don't like to look at the truth of things. We don't like really to look at the relationship between the valley and the mountain. That the mountain without the valley doesn't make any sense. So how can we separate the good from the bad? But that's exactly what ego wants. Ego is trying to be like this kind of alchemist. It wants to go and just get only the good stuff out of life and hoard it and keep it. And the bad stuff, it wants to kill it all. Just kill it all. Just get all rid of it. And then I can enjoy my good stuff for the rest of my life. That's the idea, right? But it's such a fake idea. It's so unrealistic. Like I only want to breathe in. If I say I want to, okay, here is let go of everything. I say, okay, I like letting go of breathing out. Because I don't particularly like breathing out. But what about breathing in? It's the same thing. We cannot separate it, breathing in and breathing out. So this is this common misunderstanding that there is happiness and there is suffering. They are together. They're one thing. They're one wheel. And it keeps just spinning around and around. Now that's even more depressing. I'm like, wow, how can I enjoy myself when everything is kind of that one thing? When happiness and suffering are one, how can I enjoy myself? Well, if you let it go, there is some deeper joy. Let's not, just for the sake of playing with words a little bit, let's call it happiness or pleasure and pain. So we have these two polarities. We're chasing pleasure and we're fighting pain. Okay? Now when you let go of both, when you let go of pain, there is joy. When you let go of pleasure, there is also joy. So no matter what you let go of, you become lighter. You're not carrying stuff around anymore. It's not that you let go and then you lose it. It's still going to be around. The circumstance is still going to be the same thing. It's just you're not suffering it anymore. Meaning you are not carrying it anymore. You're not weighed down by it. Some Thai masters like to give this example of a snake. It doesn't matter where you're touching it. If you're touching it at the tail, it'll turn around and bite you. If you touch it at the head, it will bite you. So touching the snake at the head is suffering. It's pain. But touching it at the tail is just delayed pain. This is pleasure. Is there any pleasure in life that you can keep? Let's ask it like this. Is there any pain that you can keep? Or that you can get rid of? Not really. The fact that we experience pain in many different shapes and colors, that is just a fact of life. The same is true, of course, for pleasure. They both come together. So letting go means leave it, just allow that to be. Allow there to be pleasure, and don't hold it. Just don't touch it, don't own it. And allow there to be pain too. Just don't own it. Don't touch it. Just leave it. And so you're suffering none of those. That is the real idea of actually letting go. We're not trying to get rid of anything. When a master says, let go of everything, then it doesn't mean you need to throw out all of your clothes and need to get rid of your house, you need to sell your house, in your car also you need to sell it, take off your glasses, everything, just take it out, put it away. Let go of your hair, let go of your body, just burn the body right now. That's not letting go. That's just silly. It's the idea that all these kind of things will make you happy. Let go of that. Because it's just things. If you're looking for happiness or genuine joy, you will not find it in things. That's all that this really says. There is no genuine joy in this world, meaning there is no joy in changing things. So then, of course, your question would be, well, where is it then? It's at the place you least expect. It's at the place where you are looking from. So joy is not an object you can find. Joy is not an object. That's pretty cool. And so this is what we do when we turn within. That's what that means. You're turning within. You're finding yourself, you find your center, and so forth. This is a journey of increasing joy. The more you let go, the more joy there is. The more you can allow the world to be the way it is and just detach from it and let it be, the more joy you experience, the more light you are. The more stuff you're holding on to, and I need my life to be like this, and I need this to look like that, and the more you suffer. It's that simple. In order for me to be happy, I need everyone to behave properly. You don't get that. You don't get it. Even though the ego loves to have people around behaving properly, they don't. It's always been like that. And the worst kind of sign that we want to change other people is war. Let's just kill all of them, so we have gotten rid of all our problems then. Or let's shout at them and yell at them, and then they will see just how stupid they are. Nobody will ever see that. Ego's nature is not to see its own stupidity. It sees its own splendor, its own righteousness. It doesn't see that it just is like a dog that tries to bite its own tail. It's this kind of entity that talks to itself the whole day long about the shoulds and the woulds and the coulds, and having and trying and struggling and maybe now also meditating. It's like this dog trying to bite its own tail. It's an endless thing. And for the dog, the tail looks like a threat. I need to get that thing there. What is it? It moves. Let's just get it. And so we hate ourselves, and we don't like ourselves, or we love ourselves. Who loves who? Are there two of you in your head? Does that sound very sane? Oh, let's do some meditation. Oh, it's a good idea. Let's do some meditation. Very good. Okay, so sit down. You've been distracted. All right, I've been distracted again. Man, I'm so distracted today. Yeah, you're really distracted today. Get back to work and meditate properly. You should do more meditation anyways. Yep, I should do more meditation. I'll do more session maybe this evening, this afternoon. Who is talking with who? Who is this voice talking to? And who is listening to it? It's the dog biting its own tail. It's the same thing. It's that ego complex. And its sole function is to keep itself trapped in pain. And sometimes it needs this kind of tough love or life showing you in a very strong way, just snap out of it and practice. Do the work. Make it work. Yes, sure, you sit down and you feel, I don't know really what to do. Maybe I should do a guided meditation instead. And we don't like this feeling of not really knowing what we do. It's like for the first time you're getting into the water, you're just learning how to swim. You do your first kind of steps and it feels wet and it feels cold and it's like, man, I'm not sure about what I'm doing here. Let's just read a little bit more about it. Let's just visit a few more classes about swimming. Because you have to do it at some point. And then you will discover, wow, it's nice, it carries me. You have to develop the trust in your practice also, trusting yourself. And all that comes with time. It comes with having a teacher, visiting your teacher regularly. It comes with having a community of people who practice together, visiting them regularly, having good exchange and so forth. And all that slowly will help your practice to grow. And with it, of course, joy, bliss, happiness, inside, freedom from suffering and stress. That's not just empty promises. This is a real experience that is waiting for you. Good. I think that's enough for today.